All right, we're in Unit 8, Day 1. We're going to talk about radicals and geometric mean. For these first few, we're going to simplify the radical. So the radical on number 1 is the square root of 25. When we simplify radicals, we break apart the value underneath into its factors. So what two numbers can multiply and give me 25? Yes, 5 times 5. So whenever I see a pair of numbers, I will always cancel one out and move one to the outside of the symbol, the radical sign. So the square root of 25 is simply 5 because a 5 came outside and a 5 was canceled out. So the square root of 9 is going to equal the square root of 3 times 3. And again, I have a pair of numbers. 1 3 cancels out, 1 3 comes outside. So the square root of 9 is simply just 3. You can do number 3 on your own. Now we're going to solve these equations. We have x squared equals 36. And when we say solve the equation, that means get x by itself, right? So that means even removed exponents that may be attached to x. So to remove the, excuse me, to remove the power of 2, you have to do the reverse, which is the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides of the equation. So in other words, the square root cancels out the power of 2, and all you're left with is x. So again, x is going to equal the square root of 36. So we can break 36 down into 6 times 6, right? The goal is to look for pairs. Yes, I could have chose 12 and 3 or 4 and 9, but again, the goal was to look for pairs. That way, when I have a pair, I can cancel one out and take one outside the sign. So the answer, x is equal to 6. Again, number 5 says x squared is equal to 16, so I would take the square root of both sides and rewrite. So it's x equals the square root of 16. And then when I break 16 up into its factors, I would get 4 and 4. So that means x is equal to 4 because one always cancels out and one comes out the sign. Excuse me, sorry. Now we're going to talk about geometric mean. Geometric mean is the square root of the product of two numbers. So this next view wants us to find the geometric mean between the following numbers. So the first thing we're going to do for number 6 is find the geometric mean between 4 and 9. So again, that means the square root of the product. Product means to multiply. So the geometric mean is going to equal the square root of 4 times 9. And when I multiply 4 and 9, I will get 36. So the geometric mean is the square root of 36. And we just talked about it on the previous slide that the square root of 36 was equal to 6. For number 7, find the geometric mean. It's the product, square root of the product of 5 times 20. And 5 times 20 is 100. So the square root of 100 is 10. If you want proof, you can always grab a calculator, but it's not necessary in those two situations. you should recognize that 36 is a perfect square as well as 100 is a perfect square. If you don't have a perfect square, for example, 7 times 8, that's 56, right? Sorry, that's supposed to be an 8. I don't believe 56 is a perfect square. So now we're going to grab our handy dandy calculator and take the square root of that. To find the square root sign on our calculator, you're going to hit second, which is the blue button, and then x to the power of 2. That's the square root sign. And now type 56 and hit enter. So it's approximately 7.5 is the geometric mean between 7 and 8. How many triangles do you see in this picture? If you guessed correctly, you should have said 3. There are 3 triangles. You have a small one to the left, a larger one to the right, and a much larger one that is joining those 2 smaller ones together. So in this one picture, you have 3 similar triangles. Sometimes it's best to separate the triangles and relabel them so that you can see it clearly. So the biggest triangle, we know that x is the short side, z is the medium side, and then 5 together with 16 would make up the longest side, and that would be 21. And then on the medium size triangle, the shortest side is y, the medium side is 16, and the longest side is z. Z is across from the right angle on that one. And then on the smallest triangle, the shortest side is 5, the medium side is y, and the longest side is x. So sometimes when you have a scenario like this, it's helpful to separate all the triangles and then set up proportions like we used on our last test. But you can keep the triangle intact and use other proportional setups, and we call these through the middle or the mustache. And I'm about to demonstrate how each one of them works. First things first, make sure you get the total length of the longest side of the largest triangle. So that means take the 10 and the 4, add them together, so that's 14. Through the middle works as follows. You start on the longest side of the largest triangle, and you start on one of the parts, either the 10 part or the 4 part, it doesn't matter. I usually like to start on the left and then work right, if that's how the triangle is facing. So I'm going to start on 10. I have to go through the middle and touch y. Right there, that is 1 fraction, so 10 over y. And it's going to equal, so I keep going, starting at y, come down all the way to the last part. So it's going to equal y over 4. So if I was asked to find y, this is the setup I would use to do that. So now let's say I'm asked to find x. So if I'm asked to find x, I would have to use the mustache method. And this is how the mustache method works. You pick any part from the longer side of the largest triangle. So let's say I pick 10. I start at 10, come around the corner and hit x. So that's 1 ratio. 10 is to x. And I set it equal to, starting at x, come back around to the total side. So x to 14. Notice I didn't come back to the part. I came back to the total. So you might be asking, why is it called a mustache? Because I'm not quite done yet. Now, if I want to find Z, I would have to start at the 4 part, come around this corner to Z, so that's 1 ratio, 4 over Z, and that ratio is going to equal, starting at Z, come back around to the whole, so Z over 14. So I could finish solving these proportions if necessary to find the respective variables. But right, I don't need to find the variables at this point in time. I was just showing you the different setups that were possible in a picture like this. So now you can see the 2 curls of that form the mustache. So again, I can use through the middle or the mustache. Part to corner, part around the corner, and corner to hole. So number 9, it wants us to solve for x. As you can see in this picture, x is around the corner from 3. So we're going to have to use the mustache method. We need to know the entire length of the side, the longest side, and so that means we need to combine both 5 and 3, and when you combine them, you get 8. Now that I have the entire length, I can use the mustache method. So again, the mustache will start at 3 because I want to hit x, and that's the only part that will allow me to touch x. So start at 3, come around the corner, hit x. That's 1 ratio. Set it equal to, starting at x again, come back around to the whole. So that's x over 8. Now we cross multiply like we've done in the past. So this one we're going to have x times x set equal to 3 times 8. When you take x times x, you're going to get x squared. Got to remember your algebra, ladies and gentlemen. And it's equal to 3 times 8, which is 24. Again, we're not done. We haven't found x yet because we got to remove the power of 2, which we just talked about early on. To do that, you must use the square root sign. So x is equal to the square root of 24. So let's grab our calculator. So second x squared, so the square root of 24, is about 4.9. So x is approximately 4.9. All right, on this one, we're solving for x again. So we're going to need to combine both parts. So we need to combine x with 4, and the only way to do that is simply say x plus 4. And now we got to use the mustache method again. We have to start at 4. So start at 4, come around the corner to 6. So that's 1 ratio. Start at 6, come back around the corner to the whole. So 6 is 2x plus 4. And now we cross multiply. So that's 4 times x plus 4, set equal to 6 times 6. So I distribute on the left side, so that would give me 4x plus 16 is equal to 36. Now we solve this equation by first subtracting 16 from both sides. So 4x is equal to 20. And then divide both sides by 4. So x is equal to 5. Do number 11 on your own and take a picture of your result. Now number 12. Since x, or we have one of the parts through the middle labeled, we're going to use the through the middle process. Doesn't matter which corner you start from. I could either start from 5 or start from 2. That doesn't matter. So I'm going to start from 5. So 5 through the middle, I hit x, so that's one ratio. Start from the middle and go to the other part. So x is to 2. And now I cross multiply. So again, I've had x times x is equal to 5 times 2. X times x gives me x squared. 5 times 2 is 10. And now I take the square root because I want to find x. So x is equal to the square root of 10. And now we grab our handy dandy calculator. The square root of 10 is approximately 3.2. And then this concludes your notes for the day.